the epidemic had to hit close to home, if not home. So bringing awareness to NARCAN and what it can do and the long-term, short-term effects is something that we wanted to share with our community. And I want to say a special thank you to Ken Ginleck Sr. This is a special thanks to Zentech and Cross Lutheran Church and Pastor Michelle and the staff for providing us with the venue. And also within the OFA organization. And with that being said, John would like to come up and speak his time.
Would somebody give him the lava?
Okay. And yeah, I'm John Olson, co-organizing this with Joanne. And yeah, it's been really important for us to do something positive in the community, especially with the opioid crisis and the rising rates of opioid overdoses and the large amount of deaths that can result from use of. That has been the main reason we came together, made this with the Cross Lutheran Church and our guest speakers. So, pleased to introduce our first guest speaker, Kenneth. Oh, sorry. Kevin, sorry.
All right. I'm going to scream at you, so I'm going to make sure you hear me. Hello, I'm Kevin. Point Needle Exchange Program. A large portion of my day involves me driving around in a nondescript soccer mom van with all the seats in the stow and go, with the back filled with needles and bio containers. So I drive around and I meet people, and I pick up their dirty needles and give them clean ones. And if they're interested in getting some Narcan, I got the little flip down screen. I show them the video that I'm going to show you guys to teaches people how to administer the drug, and they get some, and they can save themselves, maybe a friend or something. That's my day. I had never heard of anything like this. We're giving people needles to get high, and the thought blew my mind. Like, why are we enabling? My peers that I work with taught me so much. I'm not enabling. What we're doing is we're reducing harm. People who are addicted to drugs, you can't be addicted to drugs forever. Either you're going to get off drugs or you're going to die. So we have to reduce, get off the drugs. So that's my main purpose now. I'm into harm reduction. And my goals for you guys, when someone is overdosing, just doing what I do, I'm gonna be honest with you, sometimes I think everybody's overdosing. I'm driving down the street, 35th and Greenfield, I see a guy laid out on the ground. I'm like, oh, I jump out the van, I run up to him. Sir, are you all right? Give me 35 cents. He was fine, nothing, yes. So I want you guys to be able to recognize an overdose, be confident that you can help an individual who may be overdosing, and in the end, I have Narcan that I can provide for you. That's my goals, and I also have a video that I'm going to show you. This is the one that I show people, and after I got here, I realized I've never done this in a church, and there's a little language on this video. It's a raw video. It's actually real. There's a person who overdoses in the video. This is all real from the Chicago Harm Reduction. So, but I just want you to check it out. When it's over, you got any questions for me, feel free. And we're going to be doing this on the laptop.
Yeah, so and then I'll see if I can get it on my camera.
Okay.
Oh, that's going to be perfect. Can everybody else see?
Let's just give us a minute.
Yeah, everybody gets situated. It's only 13 and a half minutes or so. Are we good?
Yeah, you want to,
Yes. All righty.
you might want to put the lava loop close to the...
I've seen you look worse.
It's good.
Okay.
Wherever you are.
Sweetie, are you okay? NARCAN. Good. Honey. No, this is okay. This is for real. Honey! Get away.
Steve, wake up.
Steve!
Naloxone. Generic equivalent to Narcan. Everybody calls it Narcan because more familiar. You see it in the movies. You see it. People talk about it on the street. But we distribute Naloxone, which is the same as Narcan, just generic and cheaper. Naloxone. It only works on opiates.
Heroin,
Morphine,
Oxycontin,
Percocet,
Dilaudid,
Vicodin,
Methadone,
codeine,
Norco.
Not cocaine, not alcohol, none of those other things. But taking the opiate out of the picture more than one substance, eliminating the opiate only could help.
I remember the day that Mike told me he was an addict. He actually came home with a bottle of Narcan and told me what it was, told me how to use it, and I was glad because then I have the opportunity to actually use the Narcan and save his life.
We woke up that morning sick, like every morning, and, you know, he drew it up and he did his hit, and then I'm mixing up mine, and I look over at him, and he's like really knotted, really fucked up, so I touch him and say, "You okay?" He says, "Yeah, I'm alright." And then 2 minutes later, same thing. "Babe, you okay?" "Yeah, he's fine." That's what he said. And then I remember him just going backwards on that bed on the floor.
And I just remember jumping across the table, and when I got down to him, I could see his lips were blue. And I thought, oh shit, it is for real, he's dying. I took my knuckles across his lips, and he nothing, no response. So what, we flipped him on his side, mouth out, made sure he had nothing in his mouth, got him on his back, you know, tilted his head the way you're supposed to. I did 2 quick breaths like you're supposed to do into his mouth, and I wasn't thinking straight, so the air came right back out his nose because I forgot to pinch his nose. And so then I had to do it again, pinch his nose and 2 quick breaths. And then what? You guys had to go get the Narcan.
Maybe got it on our side. Okay, come on, man. Okay.
Finally, we came back with a NARCAN, and I drew it up and hit him with it.
I was there breathing for him, and then when you guys ran back in, gave me the Narcan, I loaded up 1 cc, which is all you're really supposed to give him. You know, you can just go right through the clothing, so I did. I just hit him right in the upper arm, that muscle up there.
They come right off like that. And snug it right up like that. Don't even have to take the cap off.
And that was it. And then he took that big breath.
Can you hear me?
Back you dead.
You just died. We gotta hit you with NARCAN.
You awake, buddy? You alright? He already knew half an hour from now that Narcan's gonna wear off. Your high is gonna come back. And in fact, your OD might come back, which is why you and I had to stay with him for a couple hours. You stayed with him a long time.
Oh, yeah. I married him. Of course I did.
I hit him once in the ass, and it took about 3 to 5 minutes, you know, and he took that big gasp of air, and once you hear that, all good. From my experience anyway, you know.
Where am I? What happened? What's going on? Where am I?
I don't believe you. You know, I don't have fucking money to get another bag. Oh my god. I'm sick. I need another bag.
Honey, it'll wear off in 20 minutes.
This shame kills because it silences them from talking. It keeps them from telling the people who might save them.
A little package like this with a couple syringes and a bottle of NARCAN in it.
Never use alone if at all possible.
Number 2.
Always make sure you have NARCAN on you. And know where the nearest telephone is to dial 911. Do not mix your heroin with downers such as benzos or any other opiate or alcohol. It's a lethal combination.
Pam's absolutely right. Everyone knows you shouldn't mix downers with opiates. Is that mixing uppers cocaine, amphetamines with opiates increases your risk of overdose as well.
If you're coming out of prison or you have a clean system, use way less than you did before you got locked up or whatever.
Taste the shot, you know.
Inject a little bit at a time, see how you feel, and then go ahead with the rest.
I know, back in the old days, it was a lot of work. Some people would shoot them up with milk, sugar water. I've seen people try to shoot them up with salt water. My philosophy was I used to almost beat them silly, you know, beat them black and blue, keep them up, keep them from falling, rub them in the snow, drag them on the snow or ice water, something to keep them from going further into their knot. It was a lot of work, you know. Thank God for Narcan.
Michael! 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 Come on, man. All I ask is if, anyone out there watching this film knows anyone, is close to anyone with an opiate addiction, you really just need to ask yourself one question. Do I want to keep this person alive? And if you do, keep Narcan around. If he's dead, he can't recover.
All right. You guys have any questions about what you just watched? Anything? What was that again?
How long would it take for this to affect the person?
Question.
How long would it take for the
And to reverse the overdose. It can depend on the size of the individual. Let me say I've been involved in 7 overdose reversals, and it has always taken more than one shot. So in the video, it kind of made it look so simple. One shot, simple for me. So sometimes you do the one shot, you hit them with 1 cc, you wait 3 to 5 minutes, and it could be the longest 3 to 5 minutes of your life. But you wait that 3 to 5 minutes, and if you don't get the shot. Yes.
I bought ours from CVS.
Oh, that's pretty expensive.
Well, it was only like $17.50.
How many doses did you get?
I started offering it.
Okay.
My biggest thing is I've never injected anybody before.
Okay.
And it says pop the top and make sure it's really tight. I'm not sure I can do that in a fearful situation. And what happens if there's like a bubble in there or something?
You definitely don't want to inject air into a person. So that's why once you draw back, you shoot a little bit just to make sure that all the air is out of the syringe.
Okay, I didn't say that. Right.
Because injecting air can be really troublesome.
Well, but you're giving this intramuscularly, not in a vein, so a little bit of air is
Yeah.
not going to hurt.
Yeah, you're not going into.
And the other thing to think about is if you've got the syringe and stuff at home, practice just, with water or something else, using it so that you're comfortable.
Did you have a question?
How many doses are in the bottle?
And so let me show you what I have. is a green bag because sunlight is the enemy of Narcan. It weakens it. Doses of the Narcan. 3 of these syringes that can go through clothes. So it shouldn't be any problem. You can just hit them wherever they're sitting. I've hit people while they were in the passenger seat of a car. It should be okay. So there's 3 doses inside the bag that I have. I also have very small amount of nasal. So like some people aren't comfortable with shooting someone. For us, this is a lot more expensive. That's why I only have a very small amount of it. And personally, I prefer the intramuscular over the nasal. For syringe, you can see 1 cc, and I can see it going in, and I can see it working. I don't know when I'm putting this in somebody's nose and squeezing it, I don't know if there's some I don't know if they're going to get the full dose. So personally, I'm more comfortable with the other one. But I have a small amount. If you're really more comfortable with it, you're more than welcome. And I just want to also say, no matter how the size of the person, hit them with the full dose. If it's an infant, you hit them with 1 cc. If he's a big dude, you still hit him with, each person gets the same size.
So if you're mistaken and believe that someone is overdosed, but it may be some other medical issue, would a Narcan affect them negatively?
No. Narcan has no effect whatsoever on taking opiate. Narcan basically blocks brain receptors. This is your brain receptor. Narcan just basically blocks it from feeling the effects of the opiate. With that said, the opiate is still in your system, so you have to be aware that once the Narcan starts to wear off, an overdose can go around with the person who you did inject, just to make sure that they're okay for maybe an hour or 2. Yes.
So you're not. So you're not calling 911 right away?
I recommend you always call 911.
Okay.
I personally deal with drug addicts, and they do not want me to call 911. They're from another county where a person slumped over in the driver's seat because they're afraid of the police. So our situation is probably a lot different than what you may encounter. I say always call 911.
Because we were, I worked down at Bayshore Town Center in one of the office buildings, and 2 of my coworkers came back from lunch one day, and they were saying it was a young guy standing in the parking garage on the stairs, looked like he was in pain. And they didn't stop to talk to him or anything. So our security officer went down there, and somehow he had made it down to the first floor and kind of passed out in the parking garage, and he was having he had OD, like 25 years old. So by then,
Definitely call, and I don't know, a lot of people aren't aware of the Good Samaritan law. You can't get in trouble if you call the police off. That's not even necessary. The Good Samaritan law will protect you if you call 911. And yeah, you might not want to have any dope in the room. You might want to tell the friend to take the dope, but you because you should be okay in that situation.
all right, thank you.
No problem.
Person still ODs and but after it doesn't affect them.
So let's say you're saying if you inject a person and this happened, and the person 911.
There would be no onus of guilt on you unless you possibly supplied that person with the drugs or you injected that person with the drugs. Person walking by and you see someone on the street and you administer first aid
like he said, there's a good Samaritan law where you're in good faith.
That someone comes to you, knocks on your door and tells you that so-and-so down the hall, they stick. But when you run in there, you see that this person has been using drugs, and you do what you think is best as far as using this, and the other person runs out the house. Okay. Now you stay in the same building.
Yes. I'm not afraid of the police.
I'm not either.
Call the police. Call the police. 'Cause that's the best way to protect yourself and the person who's in trouble.
I'm still not afraid of it.
No.
I'm just saying.
Tell the truth. Hey, somebody just came in and told me I tried. It's not working. You know, you may have to answer some questions, but okay. Pretty much always.
Where else can people get Narcan besides, like CVS?
The AIDS Resource Center of Wisconsin, their supply. Let's get some card, and you're more than welcome to come pick some up if you need it.
I guess I'm looking at the responsibility of
Yeah,
the church.
if they're definitely using opiates, there should be some Narcan. Somebody should have some Narcan in their circle.
Well, I'm here to learn how to use it.
So that's, you definitely, I'm gonna make sure you get some.
One thing, I think Narcan does have a 2-year shelf life too. I'm not, don't hold me on that shirt. Marquette University uses on it. They obviously recommend that you update it.
October 2019. So good for a little while. The next February 2020. And if you keep it out of the extreme temperatures, it should be good. Once this thing starts cloudy though, toss it. It still has some strength. I don't want to take up all the time. So I'm gonna pass the mic.
First off, I'd like to thank everyone for their time and their concern. Very important topic, I think, that needs to be addressed. And the reason I say that is I've been in law enforcement for about 30 years now. I was a Milwaukee police officer for 26 years. And when I left Milwaukee back in 2013, I'm sure this was an issue, but it was nowhere near where it's at today. I never had any experiences with overdoses from opioid. Back then, we dealt with more crack cocaine, but heroin and the pill abuse that we have today, I think, is at a different level. One of I'm sure have. I guess maybe am here to let everyone know what first responders on a regular basis, whether it's medical professionals or law enforcement, deal with on a regular basis. I still speak with some of my friends from Milwaukee, and they tell me on a weekly basis they're coming across this issue. I just happen to be in the right place at the right time for my story. So my story begins back in August of 2017 in the area of 24th in Wisconsin, between Wells and Wisconsin. I don't know if you are familiar with the area, but it's a street where there's for the Ambassador Hotel, there's a quick pick on the corner of 24th and Wisconsin, and there's a school on the west side of 24th Street. So between 24th, quick pick, but cars generally don't park there. So this one afternoon, I happened to be driving down 24th Street, and I observed a vehicle parked in the 700 block on 24th Street. And I saw a lone female in the driver's seat of the vehicle. At the time, what caught my attention is I could kind of see her dozing off as if she was possibly sleeping, but I thought 2 in the afternoon, this is a little odd. And start to rest here in the middle of a street like this. It just doesn't happen. I've been doing this for 5 years on the Marquette campus, and I don't see that on a regular basis. The street, I was going towards Wisconsin. I made a U-turn, and that quickly I pulled up behind her vehicle, and at that time I could see she was now slumped over into the passenger. I got on the radio and I called for another unit. In Marquette, we have 1 unit at all times carries a defibrillator, and also in that defibrillator we have 2 pads ready for use at any time. So I called for backup. I approached the vehicle, and when I looked inside, I could see there was evidence of drug use. I saw a needle, and I saw some rubber bands, and I saw a tin cup, what they generally use to mix the heroin. And I identified myself, and I tried to get this woman to respond with no luck. I called for medical because I knew that this woman's going to need more than maybe what I could administer, so I called the fire department. I called for the fire department. By that time, my backup arrived. I opened the door. Now I pulled. She's unresponsive. She's very shallow breath. She's kind of gurgling. So my partner, Officer Jesse Nelson, and a third officer actually arrived, Officer Brian Larson. He goes to the passenger side, and Officer Nelson comes up behind me, and I tell him we got to take this woman and lay her out because obviously we can't really administer first aid to her in a seated vehicle. There just wasn't enough room. So we pulled her out and we laid her on the grass between the roadway and the sidewalk. And at that time, I told Officer Nelson, I said, we have to try the NARCAN. We've never done this before, but I said, this is what I think is going on. I think she is overdosing. So Officer Nelson administered 1 dose of the NARCAN and had absolutely no effect on her. We waited a couple minutes, and I told Officer Larson to get the other dose of NARCAN, at which time he administered the second canister of NARCAN, and that had absolutely no effect. We were doing sternum rubs. We were making sure that she still had a pulse. She did have a pulse, but her breathing was shallow, so we didn't at this point administer any first aid other than just third NARCAN at our disposal. A couple minutes later, fire department pulls up. We turned over the patient to them. They administered a third dose of the NARCAN. It took 4 doses. Finally, the 4th dose that they administered got this woman to at least become a little bit more conscious. She wasn't talking, but she was at least able to breathe, and her eyes were open, and she was kind of, coughing. So back to your question, sir, how many canisters? It could take up to 4. I was told that, like Kevin, some officers in Milwaukee have told me that they've put 1 dose in some of the patients' noses and they snap out of it like that. So when I administered the first can, I was kind of like thrown back because I've never had this happen, but from the stories I was told in the past, that 1 canister should do it. 2 canisters didn't do it. I was really now I'm starting to panic. Thank God the EMTs arrived. They took over and they administered the other 2 doses to this woman. Marquette, our protocol is this woman goes to the hospital regardless of what her, if she wants to or not. We force our patients. I'm not quite sure what Milwaukee's policy is. I would recommend anytime, like he said, 911, but if you forget to call 911, if you do give them the NARCAN, I would still get them to a hospital, whether you transport them there in your vehicle. Because like that video said, and that's something new I learned tonight from this gentleman here, that the person can go back into that state where they're unconscious in that overdose state. If you administer the NARCAN and they come back, they can again obviously go back into their overdose state, which could kill them if they don't get the proper medical. When I went to the hospital to speak to this woman, she had no idea what happened. She was asking me for her baby. She had a car seat in the back. And I said, your child wasn't in the car. So this woman didn't even know where her child was at that time. She didn't know where her car was. She didn't know what happened. So it's like, they don't remember anything from the time that they are administering the drug to the time that they get brought back and are obviously seen medically. And like I said, it was an experience for me because now it's not that I can recognize it, but I think from my 30 years of experience, there are certain things that just stick out to me. And like he said, in the area around Marquette, we do problems with drug addiction, alcoholism. We do get sent to people who are students or whoever will call and say, hey, I see a subject or a person lying in the, So we arrive, we have to know, obviously, what signs to look for. Situation like this, I don't know what to tell you. If you see someone down and you think they might have overdosed, don't hesitate to use a NARCAN because you can't, like Kevin said, it doesn't harm them from the usage of it. It can only save their life. And with that, I'll take any questions. If anyone has any questions about the Marquette area, I can maybe in almost 5 years now, so obviously their policies have changed. How many the problems we come across during the night with drinking, and there's drug use. I wouldn't say it's rampant, but I would say it's definitely, it's there. We do see it, we deal with it, but alcohol is the number one. It's the number one problem. And like I was telling these gentlemen, here a problem on college campuses, similar to the people who use illegal drugs. If I'm using drugs with my partner and he falls out, they're afraid to college campus. When you have underage drinkers, their friend has alcohol poisoning, they pass out, and they're afraid to call the police because they think they're going to get their friend in trouble and they're going to get themselves in trouble because they were drinking and they're not. The police aren't looking to get people in trouble for when they're calling for help. That's just how I look at it. And I don't think I'm the minority when it comes to that. I think generally officers are looking to do the right thing and they're not looking to get people in trouble. They're looking to actually help people and make them make better decisions in the future. Because I believe penalizing people only makes the situation worse because the next time they won't call us. To me, that's common sense.
I guess what I'm looking at, has Marquette had a rise in opiate use?
No, not that I can tell. And I think that's why they asked, me to come over here and tell my story. And it was a unique situation because I did come across this person, but I can tell you all here that probably every Milwaukee police officer, not every, but majority have come across some type of opioid overdose, not necessarily having to administer NARCAN like I had to, but maybe just concerns where someone is, like you stated, this gentleman was looking like he maybe they get there and he's still in that state where he's still, aware of his surroundings, but not quite to the point where he's passed out. Yes, sir.
Called another vehicle to come and bring the NARCAN.
Yes.
Do you now have NARCAN in your squad?
No, we have, actually the supervisors also carry the NARCAN, and there's one officer every single shift that carries the defibrillator that contains the NARCAN.
Okay. And
so not every squad is equipped with NARCAN, no.
And do you know of what Milwaukee Police Department does in terms of
kits? Every single squad has they have access to the NARCAN in their first aid kits. We carry first aid kits in all our squads, but there's no more questions, well, thanks for your time again. You're welcome.
Just clip it on here. There.
Got it.
Yeah, I got one of those deep voices anyway. Hi, everybody. Again, thank you for coming out. My name is Ken Genlek. I'm a substance abuse counselor and a master level social worker. I currently work in the emergency department at Columbia St. Mary's. But I've been doing substance abuse 10 years. I worked in different treatment modalities as far as medical assistant treatment, as far as harm reduction, as Kevin talked about. I worked in IOP, correctional clients, residential treatment. So I've been working with people struggling with the disease of addiction for a while now and treated thousands, I can safely say. However, now I see a shift, a paradigm shift in treatment far as the opioids. And I would say 90% of people that's struggling with the opioid drug, it actually started from pain medication. And it escalates to heroin. Not always, but that's the norm as far as the people that I come across or that I actually treat. So it kind of perpetuates a little bit as far as the pain versus addiction, right? Because we talked about NARCAN, we talked about how we can administer it and save someone. So what happens after that? Is the disease treatable, right? So we have to look at the disease of addiction because it is an illness and say, how do we treat this? And there's no clear-cut, cookie-cut answer on how to treat the disease of addiction. We may look at different modalities that work for different people, meaning some people may benefit from the methadone program or Suboxone, and some may not. Some may benefit from traditional counseling. Some may benefit from residential treatment because they need to be pulled out of that environment in order to work on their recovery process. Some may only need IOP, which is intensive outpatient treatment. So it's just finding the right fit for that person. Yeah, it's certain criteria that we go to, that we look at when we're looking to place someone in the treatment. However, again, it's no cookie cut answer. A lot of people that struggle with pain and that's currently in the pain management clinic, you know, I often get that question of, I don't know if I'm addicted or I'm just in pain or the medication, right? And it's true, you know, car accident, gunshot wound, appendicitis. I see all kind of illnesses or injuries that perpetuated the drug use. And one of the first signs I always tell them to look for is, are you taking the? So that's one of the first signs to say, hey, something's going on, right? So if my prescription is not due until the 30th and it's the 15th and I'm out of medication, you might want to start looking at what you can do, or, you know, am I taking the medication more than I need it, right? So that's real important. That's one of the signs to say, hey, something's going on. You may start experiencing withdrawal symptoms, right? And I want to speak on that a little bit. Does withdrawal symptoms indicate that I'm addicted? Yes and no, right? Because even if I'm prescribed this opiate and I'm taking it for pain, when I run out of medication and I'm taking it as prescribed, I can still experience the withdrawal symptoms, right? And so we need to know what to look out for. Again, working with your medical provider, finding out why, why am I experiencing withdrawals? What's going on with my body? I don't, and I try to educate people for the signs to look for when they actually start going through withdrawals, because that your body is craving for it or you need it, right? I work in the emergency department, and to speak on the NARCANs, I often see, well, more than often, almost every night that I'm at work, at least one person come in there from overdose. And you would think someone would reach out and ask for help, but that's not always the case, right? The disease of addiction is strong, and I just want you guys to kind of wrap your mind around that, because you may have a family member or someone that you know or someone you love that you're close to, and you'll think, right, that you overdose and you still want to get high. Yeah, right? It's not uncommon. So it's very common, and it's hit or miss. So in the emergency department, when I run across people that was administered Narcan, I'll try to be the first one in their room, and I'll try to use that as a starting point of their recovery process. Again, I was talking to Paul and Kevin, and we have some patients that come in with such a high amount of opiates in their system that they continue to OD. They go back into the overdose state over and over again. So it's real important. So if I have a friend and I administer the Narcan, we don't just get up and start back kicking it and we okay. Please go get medical help, because protocol at the hospital is we monitor you for at least 4 hours to make sure you're not going in and out, right? As the Narcan or the naloxone starts to leave your receptors, right, the opiates can attach back to the receptors, which cause you to go back into the overdose state. But we have some severe cases where we actually administer a Narcan drip. And the Narcan drip is an IV, but it's Narcan, and it's a continuous drip, and you're admitted to the hospital, to the ICU. So, again, hopefully that's a starting point to the recovery process, but it's not always the case. Recovery is possible, right? I must say that. How do we support family members to bring them back? After we administer the Narcan and they go to the hospital and they get in, how do we help? We want to support them. How do we support them? Right? We watch intervention or that's not always the case. Because at some point we can push them further into their addiction. So sometimes, we have to look at other ways where we can be tough, but also show that support. And one of the ways of being supportive is saying, hey, you know what, come in, you can take a shower. Here's something to eat. I don't have any money for you, but I can make sure you eat. Or maybe I'll watch the kids for you while you go to group or while you go to get assessment for treatment. So those are ways that you can support your family members and your friends without actually pushing them away, right? Because everybody want to push away, right? And create bottom that we feel that is needed for someone to start the recovery process. Again, sometimes we push them to the death. So we want to be real careful. Do anybody have any questions for me? As far as like treatment goes, what was the best success I've seen in treatment? Go ahead.
Not even a question. For me, a year ago, I had a tooth extracted, and I was given 30 OxyContin, and it said, take as needed for pain.
Right.
That's just,
Right.
I think I feel pain. You know, it just makes it so much easier for a person to abuse the drug. And
so if it's already my disposition or I'm already addicted to some other drug, then I'm more likely to abuse that drug because it feels good, you know. Or if addiction run in the family, you want to be careful.
And how they falsified that it wasn't addictive as it turned out to be. And it was saying that on the box they put some right phantom addiction. Yes, they put phantom addiction on the box.
Right.
To let the doctors.
When the pharmaceutical companies promoted the opiates, the OxyContin, they presented it to the medical field as non-addictive. So as the doctors continued to hand out the disease of addiction continued to perpetuate, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we didn't know it was addictive to this fact, but they had done trials, and so it's some misinformation that started out in the beginning from the pharmaceutical company.
Pharmaceuticals company, and then also the doctors for not, because the doctors were told by the pharmaceutical company that the person that was getting the prescription would have a false addiction, and they called that something else, I forgot. But then the doctors should have been more aware.
Well, they wasn't aware in the beginning. They're aware now, so there are some interventions that's put in place. As far as it's a database, whenever you go to any pharmacy to get an opioid prescribed or prescription filled, there's a database that it goes into. So if you go to another pharmacy and try to get the same prescription, they'll say, hold on, a red flag. They can run your name through the database and see that you just had the prescription filled 10 days ago. So, it's after the fact, but there are some things that's being put in place to prevent the opioids from continuing to destroy lives.
I know that they're also tracking doctors that prescribe too much, and I just know, I'm a nurse, I just know from talking with some nurse practitioners that they kind of have to tell on each other, actually.
Yeah, it's really scary right now.
I was at a seminar and they said something about they're trying to do something with the doctors over prescribing, because the doctors are getting kickbacks from these
Right,
vacations.
absolutely, yeah.
And that's what I heard, that they were trying to.
Yeah. So,
I'm sorry, I think that's it is having an effect, talking to the doctors directly. I told my doctor I had some back pain. She suggested yoga. So that tells you
that. We have to know ourselves, right? So I always tell any one of my clients, my patients, if you're getting prescribed a medication that's highly addictive, go in with a plan. and you ask the doctor, how long am I going to be on this medication? Is it addictive? One of the deadliest combinations, and because I worked in a methadone clinic, and I see when you take opiates and benzodiazepines, such as Xanax, right? It's a deadly combination because what it does is suppresses the breathing. So sometimes heroin or it was cut with fentanyl, but it can be that combination of drug that actually cause you to overdose. People die in their sleep. The brain forget to tell the body to continue to breathe. The breathing is suppressed, and they pass away. So that's something. So if you want to let the doctor know this, I'm being prescribed, benzodiazepines. So you want to go in with.
In 2016, the U.S. government finally went after a pharmaceutical company in Mexico. They started out sending 60,000 pills here, and then they every month from that first time that they sent for like 3 years, they kept raising it another 40,000 until they finally took them to court. Somebody in the Justice Department finally got enough nerve to go up against a corporation, but the fine that they gave them was like what you would consider you'd be caught. They got more out of the heroin bust that they got this past week than they fined these people. So I mean, the doctors are just, to me, they're doing nothing but selling for the pharmaceutical companies.
And I don't want to focus too much on the pharmaceutical companies because you know what? We all here because we know it's a problem. So we always want to, it's a problem. It's a big problem. And what can we do to help, right? So every individual that showed up tonight is like here to help, and what can I do? What little part can I play in order to help with this epidemic?
Do about HIPAA things. If your person has got some kind of an addiction, and they won't sign like HIPAA reports, drugs somewhere else to have them stop. My sister has having this problem with her ex-husband.
You mean like chapter?
Well, he goes around to different doctors, and and he won't sign over the HIPAA for her to know what they're giving him, and all of a sudden you see this person with something wrong with him, and you don't know how to help him.
Right. Well, there's no way around that. I mean, he's protected by the HIPAA law. However, what I found out is disease of addiction is pretty hard to hide. Right? So even denial and say, maybe they're not using, we pretty much know all the signs are there that they're addicted or something is going on. Turn our head because we don't want to look at the fact that they're struggling with the disease of addiction. So, but there's no way around the HIPAA law, when I mentioned chapter. And that would be the only way to try to start a petition. Yeah.
We don't even get information on students when we call and say, hey, where did you transport? They won't give us simple information like that. So when it comes to medications and illnesses, and like you said, that's difficult.
I wasn't sure if that was something that was part of your solution.
One of the things I talked about earlier was, prescribing the medication and being in that database where if he goes to a pharmacy and try to prescribe it, now if she wanted to tip the pharmacy off and say, hey, he's been going to multiple places and he shows up, that'll be something that they'll say, oh, well, let's run his name through the database. Maybe they're missing it. So, but any more questions before I pass it on? Because I have Alex coming up next. And HIPAA law, no. But Alex was one of my clients, actually, and we did maybe 30-something groups together. Something, I don't know. He was a hard case, right? So it was like, so he kept showing up, right? And he kept showing up, and I got to know Alex a little bit over time, and I was actually doing an IOP specific to opioids. So it was an opioid IOP. So everyone in the group was struggling with opioids dependence, right? Which is something that's not common. Does it make a difference? I believe it does. When I was doing correctional groups, you know, I'll have people over here struggling with marijuana, people struggling with alcohol, cocaine, and opiates, and all of a sudden the whole group frowning on the person that's struggling with opiates because they're an IV user. And they'll say, oh, I'm not doing that, I just smoke weed, right? So when we separated that group to have an IOP for specific opioid users or people that was dependent on opioids, I think it was a good group, right? And Alex was a part of that. One I mentioned methadone, I mentioned Suboxone, and it's also Vivitrol that you can use to treat opioid addiction. I'm gonna run out of time, so I'm not gonna talk about that, but Vivitrol is one of the best that I believe because there's no withdrawal symptoms as you take it. So as I was doing this event, I said, okay, we talking about Narcan, we talking about savings, talk about treatment. So I invited Alex to come and talk about recovery, right? Because we got to have some hope. We got to have some hope, right? So we need to believe that something can work. And Alex actually, you know, he made me believe that something can work. So sometime as a professional, as a counselor, making a difference. So when you see someone doing really well, it kind of gives you that hope that maybe you are making a difference in this big problem, right? So Alex, I'm gonna let you come up and tell your story. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ken. My name's Alex. I am a recovered alcoholic and drug addict. Like Ken mentioned, I was in his group. That was in 2016, so it's been a little bit of time. I just had 1 year sobriety on June 11th. But that road has not been easy. I was introduced to prescription pain pills around 21 years of age. Started sniffing heroin by 24 and shooting heroin by 26. That continued on up until last year. Last June, used. Just to tell you how powerful the addiction was, I overdosed. Narcan was administered to me. I was in the hospital for 2 days, and I still went home and used the rest of the stuff that was at my house. And if that's not just insanity, I don't know what is. So, of those 5 times that I overdosed, every one of those times Narcan was administered. 4 of the times I needed to be hospitalized, and I'm not sure if they used the nasal dose or the IV dose, but the one time that I was not hospitalized was because I went to the needle exchange and got one of these packages, and my friend was able to administer it to me. it avoided a very expensive hospital bill. Yes, you should go to the hospital after an overdose so they can monitor you so you don't go back into it, because I did start feeling the effects come back to me after it was administered to me. However, this one that I just had last June, the last one, was extremely expensive. Just the ambulance ride alone was about $1,400 plus the hospital stay. It was around $12,000. That's with insurance. So I'm definitely glad and thankful to the paramedics, the police officers, the firemen, the doctors that did save my life. But yeah, I want to talk more about where my recovery probably started. When I overdosed last year, I was on probation. So my probation officer put a hold on me. I had to turn myself in. I did a AODA program at MSDF downtown. It was 90 days. It took 1 month to get in there, so I was locked up for 4 months. Now, that is a really good thing probably for some people, jail, to get them off of the stuff initially. Because I just would not stop unless I was forced to stop. I needed to be removed from the environment for me to stop using. I could not stop on my own. While I was at MSDF, WCS, which is Wisconsin Community Services, approached us and said that we're offering people in this program the Vivitrol shot upon release. And I just am tired of living the way that I was living. So I jumped on that. The day I got released, they took me to First Step Detox, and I stayed on Vivitrol because the county was paying for it for 6 months. I had a job. My employer's insurance doesn't cover something like that. And it just felt like it was time enough in my recovery to give it a shot without it. There's a few other things I did choose to do. I moved into a sober living house. It's me and 4 other guys. We're all working towards the same thing, staying clean and sober. There's quite a few rules to the house. You have to attend meetings, you have to have a sponsor, you have to work the steps, you have to be home by a certain time. There's chores you have to do. And it's probably been the greatest decision that I've made. I am a college graduate from MSOE, but I didn't stay on campus and like live in a frat house, and this is kind of like a frat house to me, only we're all sober. But we have a really good time, and you know, that's what seems to be working, is getting involved with service work. I have service commitments on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And, you know, it holds me accountable. I have meeting sheets that I have people sign at the meetings. I'm doing community work as far as picking up trash in the neighborhoods with my mother and girlfriend and a few other family members. It's a great bonding experience. So I guess the huge person I ever cared about was myself and staying high. And now that helping other people is what gets me out of myself, and it makes me feel better. Because ultimately the reason I used is because I was not okay sober. That's the main reason I used, because it made me feel okay. It gave me that ease and comfort that. So, I don't know. I am thankful for this. I wouldn't call it medication. It's medication. It's a drug. It's a life-saving drug. I thought I was hiding it from my parents quite well. I did not mention, too, that my father is the one who found me overdosing that last time. And I never talked to my parents about Narcan. There was Narcan in my top drawer in my bedroom, and I never talked to him about how to administer it. Who knows how long I was there, on the ground laying there. He's still got to call paramedics to get there. You know, those minutes are. If I have friends that had this been available and administered to them, they would probably still be here today. I know quite a few people that have died from this, and gas stations and restaurants that are locking their bathroom doors because they're finding people in their bathrooms overdosed. You know, it's everywhere. And yeah, be aware of the warning signs. People can be pretty good at hiding it, but there are some big ones that usually are pretty blinding. And you can, even if you have any question in it, I think it'd be a good idea to have NARCAN on hand if you have any suspicion of somebody using it. What else do I got?
Quick question. How
Yeah.
You said you started with pills.
Yep.
Were those pills prescribed to you, or you got them from a friend, or how'd that happen?
Are you going to lock me up? Am I going to get in trouble? No, they were, I never had been prescribed pain pills from a doctor. No. Did I? Wisdom teeth were removed, Vicodins, yes, that is my mother in the crowd. Thank you, because my thoughts are starting to go everywhere.
You should be proud of yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
So they prescribed them, right? And then they said use them as you need them. And there's 16, maybe 14, maybe longer.
And then when it runs out and you find that you actually like the way it made you feel, and there's the other thing is the friends that I chose to associate, big part in it. I mean, if I didn't have access to it, probably wouldn't have went down the road I did go down, you know. And that's why living in this sober house is a really great opportunity, is because I'm around people that are staying sober too. Not saying everybody has. We have had people get kicked out of the house already for using, but it's a safe environment for me to be, you know. We're not talking about using, and we talk about recovery stuff. And there is help out there. Every third Monday I go into detox. So just this past Monday I go back into detox and talk to those guys about what the 12 steps are about, and offer our numbers, and if they need any rides when they get out, talk to them a little about my experience with Vivitrol. Vivitrol, yeah, that is another wonderful, that one I would call medicine. There is no narcotic effect. There is no addiction. There's no high that you receive from having it administered to you. It's not something you can take on your own. You do have to go see a doctor or a clinic to get it done. Pretty simple. You're in and out. It's a little painful in the butt. Yes, if you are taking Vivitrol and you take opiates, you can still OD because it's still in your system. The person will not feel the effect of heroin, and I believe also alcohol, but they will still have it in their system and they can OD, and that's why it can be dangerous, is because the people will try to overcome the effect of the Vivitrol. It is quite expensive. It was looking at around $700 a shot without insurance.
Once a month?
Yep, once a month, good for 30 days. Oral form of it, but I don't think it lasts as long. I think it's a daily pill that you take. Way different than what Suboxone and Methadone do, which is they actually produce a high. And, you know, for a while there, if I couldn't find heroin, I would use Suboxone, and it would feel the same, to be quite honest. I don't have any experience with taking Methadone, but from what I hear, you also develop an addiction, and you get withdrawal symptoms from both of those. What do they call that? What is that type of medication? Yeah. You still get addictive response from taking that. You are going to experience withdrawals if you stop taking it. You also will experience a euphoric effect after taking it, where Vivitrol you do not.
So if you could say anything to any heroin addict or any addict that's out there struggling, what would you say?
Life is good. Life is better. Ask for help. That was the main thing. I was unable to ask for help. I don't know if I didn't want it or I just wasn't ready. I literally had to be on the edge of dying. I had to be beaten into a state of willingness to go to these meetings and work these steps and open up and talk about my feelings and address some of the reasons why I was behaving the way I was behaving. It had to get really bad for me. Jail or death had to be my options, and chose to go away from that.
And sometimes we have to change our beliefs, right? Because if I'm in treatment or if I don't think I can change, then why try it?
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't believe any type of treatment or help, sometimes we get to the state where it's just the point where I don't think anything can help me because my addiction is so bad or because I'm so bad or because, you don't understand me. And then we feel we don't even try it. We won't even try treatment. So, even, and that's why it's important to do segments like this or training like this, getting the information out there to say, you know what, Alex was like that, or Ken was like that, or, but they was able to overcome or able to continue to work on the process of recovery, right, to do better things, right? So we looking at a gentleman here that OD'd 4 times, 5 times, was able to be here and speak about recovery. So I'm sure at one point in his life he felt as though it was no hope for him to be clean or.
No, that snowball just gets going and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it's harder to overcome the longer you stay using. But I really do believe that I'm recovered from it. I'm not suffering from the disease of addiction because I do things on a daily basis to keep me sober.
Well, first of all, I want to thank my panelists, Mr. Sis, Officer Zintek, Mr. Ginlack, and Alex. Thank you again for coming. I'd like to thank all of you for coming and supporting this great cause. And with that being said, may we all be blessed and enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.
Hang on. Oh, I want to get a picture of what. Yep. There you go.